Let's get it on then, shall we? Mwah. Welcome to Sex on the Peach, your weekly hump day dose of everyone's favourite untalked about topic, sex. Let's get honest, let's get open, let's get comfortable, and let's get in to this week's show. Happy Wednesday, everyone. Time for us to embrace hump day with another conversation about sex. I'm your host, Peach, and today we're going to be talking about one of the most common problems within the entire sexual universe, and that is sex in long-term monogamous relationships. Today, I will be speaking from a largely researched point of view, whether that's within educational resources or things I've learned from other people, because my longest relationship has only been a little over 3 years. And whilst I think education and information is helpful, nothing speaks louder than lived experiences and hearing things you can personally relate to and resonate with. I'm definitely finding that more people are becoming comfortable coming forward with their stories and the willingness to be open with them, which honestly means the world to me. But I understand this is a tricky subject, as no one would want to feel like they're disrespecting their partner or speaking on their private business. However, if anyone, whether that's alone or in a couple, would feel okay with speaking on this, please do get in touch so that we can follow today's episode up with some lived experiences. I have quite a lot of questions today, which will be the main focus of the episode, but we're going to touch on some of the basics of maintaining a healthy sexual relationship as the years and years and years go by. Let's do it. Here is Long Time Coming. Okay, so as I've previously mentioned, one of the main reasons I became interested in training to be a sex therapist was the ongoing joke that once you're married, you don't have sex anymore, or something to that effect. I've never really been convinced that's a joke, more so a statement that sounds like it's full of longing or sometimes even resentment. And I've just never felt okay with it. And married or not, when you're with someone for a long period of time, there will most likely be times when your sexual relationship isn't giving honeymoon period vibes, even if you're in the most communicative and collaborative of relationships. Boredom, routine, loss of libido, loss of attraction, they happen. The beginning of a relationship is often thought as the best part, especially when it comes to sex, because there's lots of it. It's literally an intoxicating period of time and can feel almost magical to look back on. And you almost feel like you're addicted to that person in that moment. However, over time, this naturally begins to lessen. But we don't talk about it. Instead, we let it happen and deep down wonder if our sexual relationship is over. But plot twist, sexual desire can be reignited and you can have an amazing ongoing sexual relationship. Will it be like the first 3 months forever? Probably no, because we don't have the literal dopamine coursing through our veins that we do in that time. But you can cultivate an incredible, intimate sexual space with your partner that you can enjoy for years to come. And it's never too late to start. One of the biggest issues with sex in relationships is we don't take the time at the beginning to be honest with whether the sex feels good because it actually feels good, or if it feels good because we just really like the person. It's also a new and exciting time, and because we aren't taught how to communicate about sex, it means we have this feeling that if we tell this new partner that we're obsessed with, that something they're doing sexually isn't really working for us, that it's going to rock the boat and ruin everything. Whereas really, we should be having these sexual conversations from super early on. If we don't, this is where we risk getting years in and all of a sudden, those couple of small things that weren't adjusted and spoken about at the beginning are now an unsatisfactory sex life that we aren't really participating in anymore. There may still be all the love in the world there. There may be commitment. You may be with the person you consider to be your bestest friend in the whole world. But that doesn't mean the desire is still there. And this is a bit of a vicious circle, because desire helps to feed intimacy and connection, and therefore when this fades, you can end up feeling more like roommates or pals, even when your emotional bond is still really strong. But being honest about our desire is key to getting it back. Now, desire can be affected by so many things, and as with many other parts of life, will inevitably ebb and flow. Work, stress, children, lack of effort, lack of attention, these all contribute to loss of desire and sexual connection. And listen, it's perfectly normal to not feel like having sex all the time, and certainly not something to judge yourself or your partner over. The vast majority of us are not just ready to go all the time. Obviously, I'm going to say it, all of this is going to come down to communication. Sitting down and having potentially uncomfortable conversations with your partner about your sex life and where you're at. These conversations have to be cultivated in sensitive and caring environments, and always from a position of collaboration and wanting to fix things together, and never placing blame on one party for the issues in your sex life. You're a team and should always be approaching these issues as such. As always, it's a collaboration, not a performance. I want to pay a lot of attention to the many questions I've received today, and as this is a topic we're going to discuss so very, very many times, as it's such a huge conversation in the sexual space, today I'm just going to give some suggestions for those in long-term relationships who may be needing a bit of a sexual boost. And then I'll get into the questions. To start with, never negate the importance of non-sexual touch. Sometimes focusing on the areas of your partner's body that are typically non-erogenous can be really engaging and exciting, and upping the general day-to-day touching can start to reignite your desire, and also is known to boost general relationship satisfaction. It's a simple way to connect with your partner's body and to just make physical touch a more common part of your day-to-day practice within your relationship. If you want to take an evening to then amp that up, you can even try some mutual massage, where you're allowed to touch every single part of your partner's body except their erogenous zones. Now, after you've spent some time exploring that on each other, and I mean some time, not 5 minutes before you give up, spend some time exploring that on each other and just see where it leads. You may feel encouraged to take it further. You may end up moving that touch elsewhere. You may end up having some super slippery sex. If you've fallen into a routine of always having sex at one time of the day when you do have it, try switching up the timing. When you're in a long-term monogamous relationship, switching things up and changing the rules is imperative. And it can literally be something as small as this that can make a huge difference. Because as we're with someone for a long time, the novelty of the person can wear off a little bit, so we have to create new novelties. So if you're used to having sex in the evening when you both fall into bed, try a quickie in the morning, or even a sneaky mid-afternoon session. Just the idea of the smallest change can bring with it a level of excitement that can reinvigorate your sex life if it is feeling a little stagnant. Now, So many people can be guilty of expecting their partner to always initiate, and it just doesn't have to happen like that. Your partner doesn't have to make the first move. Let your partner know you find them hot, that you find them attractive, that you find them sexy, that you still fancy them. You'll also be trying something different by initiating yourself, and that will potentially turn you on even more. It can turn into a routine of expecting one partner to take the reins, but knowing your partner wants to have sex with you is hot. That in itself is a turn on. So step out of your comfort zone and take the time to initiate. See how it feels, because you might just love it. And whilst we're on that note, we do need to take a little responsibility for our own sexual desire, because a lot of us aren't in the mood for sex until after we're turned on. So you can find ways to put yourself in the mood. Put on some sexy music, read some erotic literature, watch some ethical porn, touch yourself. Obviously, our partners play a huge role in us being turned on, but the sole responsibility can't lie with them. And sometimes we have to explore this for ourselves so that we can then share it with them. As we all know, I'm a huge advocate for masturbation. Even when you're in a relationship, never stop exploring your own body, because these are all things to maintain a sexual connection with yourself that you can then invite your partner into. You know, at the beginning of our relationships where we're all about the cute underwear and we get a year in and then all we want to wear is sweatpants? Take a moment every now and again to wear something that makes you feel sexy. I'm honestly absolutely obsessed with lingerie, and it's because I know that when I'm wearing something sexy, I feel so much more confident during a sexual encounter. Like, get yourself turned on, get sexy for yourself. That doesn't mean you have to go full suspender belt and thigh highs, because honestly, stockings can be a little bit of a pain to put on. But just find something that makes you look in the mirror and go, fuck yeah, I want to go get it on. I appreciate it's harder for men and penis owners in terms of the lingerie department, but just wear something that makes you feel good and confident, something that you want your partner to take off. Basically just a moment to think back to the effort you put in at the beginning of your relationship and take the odd moment that you can to both revisit that. And that's not just for your partner. Doing that stuff makes us feel good for ourselves too, which only helps our sexual confidence. Have those sexual check-ins. I really mean this. Take regular time to have reflection on both your sex life and your relationship. The fact that we don't discuss our satisfaction, or lack of, means that resentment builds up and ends up projecting into our relationships in other ways. So sitting down and having these check-ins with each other means that any issues that have arisen have the space to create solutions and the chance to resolve them immediately. Also, having regular conversations means you're more likely to be dealing with small things that may just require a slight adjustment, rather than hundreds of things pouring out at once if you haven't taken the time to have these honest discussions. A few other ideas might include trying role-playing. Pretend you've just met. I actually have a friend who does this once a year with her partner, and she says it's their way of keeping things spicy. If you mostly text your partner to ask what they need from the supermarket on the way home, it may be time to start upping your texting game again. Even just letting them know you've been thinking about them and can't wait to get your hands on them when you get home. When you've been together a long time, it's all about rebuilding that anticipation for each other. Get out of the bedroom. Literally take it to any other room. Just something different, somewhere different. Even better if you can and you have the time, take yourselves away for a little trip to recharge that sex life. We all know hotel sex just hits different, and for some reason, we all just have a different sexual confidence when we're off on a naughty little weekend. So get away, turn those phones off, and reconnect with each other. At the end of the day, every long-term relationship is different, and the most important thing is that you're finding what works for you, whatever that means. There's no sexual rule book, so whatever idea of that you had, throw it out of the window. Fuck being judged, that is not what we do here. It's time for you to create your own rules with your partner. As long as everything comes from a place of consent, communication, and collaboration, however you forge your sex path forward is all good. I'm going to head into your questions for today, but listen, this is a long topic, and all we've done today is touch on some absolute basics. There's no two ways about it. Sex in long-term monogamous relationships is hard. I will be talking about other relationship structures in another full episode, but monogamy isn't inherently natural. So no one should feel bad or guilty for the struggles anyone in a monogamous relationship will inevitably face. I've got you. There's always a solution and a way through. I promise. We're going to keep working on this. Question number 1. I've never had mind-blowing sex and don't even know where I would start with finding what works, because the idea of most kinks don't appeal. Is there something wrong with me? I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Most people haven't had mind-blowing sex, and that's because the majority of people have absolutely no idea what they actually like, because we are literally never taught about pleasure. Yes, sex should be fun, but it can also be super complicated. And it sounds like you're just not into the sex you've had so far. But it can really take a while to figure out what you desire and what you respond to in the sexual space. I know we're taught otherwise from what we learn in movies, but I promise you, sex isn't automatically mind-blowing the second you start having it. In fact, I would personally describe the first 5 or so years of my sexual experiences as perfectly fine. And that's not in any way a comment on the people I had sex with before then, because it's largely based on the fact that I didn't know my own body and what really felt good. There's nothing wrong with you. You are, as always, in very, very good company. The first place to start a solution is going to be self-exploration. Yes, I'm aggressively into masturbation, and I know it's not as common a practice for a lot of people, but I highly encourage you to explore your own body and what feels good, just to give you a sense of even small sensations that you enjoy. I don't know if you already have a regular masturbation practice, but if you don't, I promise you it will be an amazing thing for you to explore. Get your whole body involved. Find everywhere that feels good to touch. Porn can be a risky space to investigate because there's so many terrible examples of sex within it. But I would maybe encourage some erotic literature or audio porn, as suggested by Kaylee last week, as you may feel like something piques your interest and makes you want to try something new, or even give you ideas for a little sexual bucket list of things you might want to try. They don't have to live in the kink space. You don't have to be interested in kinks. You don't have to enjoy kinks, but you might find that you come across something that you haven't tried that you want to. Also, the self-exploration is going to help so much in terms of being comfortable when you're exploring with a partner. For a lot of people, sex tends to be a bit of a passive thing, like it's something we should be doing all the time, so we'll keep doing it all the time, but aren't actually putting the time and exploration into it that it absolutely deserves. So if you continue actively exploring your body and figuring out what might feel good for you, you'll have that information to hand to go into any new sexual experience with. Next time you are being intimate with a partner or partners, I would also actively encourage you to converse about what felt good for you, what felt good for them. Take the things that did feel good and continue working with those things and exploring them further. Communication is essential, and also you need someone that will listen and that cares, because they'll want to work on those things with you. As I've expressed in a previous episode, it took me a while to have an orgasm through penetrative sex, and when I had partners who wanted to work on that with me, we had some sexual experiences that were really less than sexy whilst we figured it out together. So it's not always going to be hot and heavy whilst we figure out exactly what works for us, but that's okay, because it's about the end game. There's a lot of people out there who think about sex, is this it? Because back to the beginning, we aren't taught about pleasure. And add sex shaming and the taboo that surrounds everything to do with sex, there's just a lot getting in the way. And please remember that sex isn't just physical. It's also hugely to do with your mind. So if you're going into sexual encounters thinking, is there something wrong with me, or I'm not really into it, there's a limit on how good something is going to feel. So the best thing you can do is go into each encounter with an open mind, which I know is easier said than done. But your number one priority is going to be relaxed. And if orgasming is on your mind, which it is for most of us, let's be honest, and you're worried about whether you're going to get there or not, a fun thing to do is to change your mind frame on it and try not to orgasm. Because when that's no longer the goal, it opens up the world of exploration and possibility, and also just makes it more likely to happen. Because if you tell someone not to push a button, all they want to do is push the button. But just remember, there's nothing wrong with you. I really hope that some mind-blowing sex is on your horizon, and you don't need kinks to achieve it. Just some time spent with yourself and your own body. And when you've figured some of these things out, you'll feel more confident relaying them to a partner, and hopefully you can then curate sexual experiences that are a lot more pleasurable for you. Next question. I'm in a hetero relationship and my male partner would like to try a threesome with another woman, and I said I would consider it if he would equally consider a threesome with another male. He's not interested in that, and I don't know how to proceed. Thoughts? Goodness, yes, this is a bit of a pickle, isn't it? I think my first question to this would be, do you really want to have a threesome with another man? Or is it purely a response to him wanting to have a threesome with another woman so that you feel like you're on an even keel? For a start, I'm glad that you've been able to have open conversations and communicate that this is something that you would both like to do. But if it's going to become a potentially point-scoring situation, it might be something that ends up being better avoided. Another woman or vulva owner doesn't necessarily equate to another man and penis owner, and I say that because you may have attraction to other women and vulva owners. Even if you identify as straight, that doesn't mean you don't have any desire towards other women or vulva owners and see yourself being able to be sexual with them. But your partner may have absolutely no desire to have sex with another man and penis owner, and he's valid to feel that way. They aren't interchangeable things that just because you can have sex with someone of the same sex that he can too. So I think you have to treat each event independently. Do you actually want to have a threesome with another woman? If you don't, and you're only doing it for him, then you shouldn't really be doing it because it's all for the wrong reasons. Exploring a threesome with a partner can be really difficult and come with a lot of issues if you aren't coming at it from a completely trusting, respectful, collaborative place. So if you're looking at it as a solution to a problem, that is not the way to go. And what you actually need to do is acknowledge any issues you have ongoing in your own sex life. If you want to have a threesome with another woman or vulva owner, then you shouldn't hold yourself back from that because of your partner not wanting to have a sexual experience with another man or penis owner. it just can't really be used as a tit for tat situation. And if the only reason you want to have a threesome his way is so he'll have a threesome your way, then again, I wouldn't really encourage this being something you explore together, as I can foresee it causing some issues further down the line. Putting yourselves in these situations is going to be incredibly vulnerable and incredibly intimate, and you both have to be ready for that. We're all entitled to our own boundaries, so the fact he has a boundary that he doesn't want to have sex with another man or penis owner is okay. Again, if this is a deal breaker to the situation, then I think you might both need to let this go on both ends, but I really don't think it should be used as a give and take. Are there other fantasies that you have that you'd like to indulge in that you could speak to him about or suggest? I certainly have things that I'm happy to do to a partner if it feels good for them that I'm not necessarily interested in having done to myself by them, and vice versa. So it just doesn't always have to be that kind of arrangement. Again, treat each situation as independent entities and be honest with yourself about what you really want. If you do go ahead and have a threesome with another woman and vulva owner and you enjoy it, but deep down feel like it was something you did more for him than yourself, there will be other things that you can explore together that you might feel are more your thing, even if it's not having a threesome with another man or penis owner. Respect each other's boundaries, as you're both entitled to them. But honestly, for now, I would recommend continuing to communicate about all of this until you both feel like you're in a comfortable and consensual place with the whole situation, because I don't feel necessarily like it's the right time to take this step yet. And make sure whatever you're doing as a partnership, that you're always approaching everything from a place of collaboration and never a place of competition. Next question. My girlfriend has recently gone on antidepressants which have affected her sex drive. I don't mind, but she is upset that we aren't having sex as much as we used to. How can I make her feel better about it? I'm sorry to hear this. As with so many topics, medication affecting your libido is so common and no one is talking about it. But roughly 72% of women experience issues with sexual desire when taking antidepressants, which is such a huge number. The effect meds can have in general is wild. Even the contraceptive pill, ironically, dramatically reduces libido. It's a real issue and it needs to be a way more open conversation. So for a start, I hope that your girlfriend is okay and that sex drive aside, her meds are helping. It's really lovely that you're being supportive, and even though you say you don't mind, which I believe, the loss of sex in a relationship can be really difficult. And it is perfectly okay to admit that. There's absolutely no shame in the fact that you miss the sex in your relationship. It's a huge part of why we're in relationships in the first place. But yes, this will be upsetting for her, and I totally understand. I haven't been on antidepressants, but I have had periods of time in my life where I've gone through health scares and not been able to have sex. And as a very sexual person, it almost feels like a huge part of my identity. So when I've had that taken off the table for whatever reason, it has often made me feel like I've lost a huge part of myself. So if she's feeling anything like that, I cannot tell you how much I empathize, because it's horrible. The best thing you can honestly do is find ways to continue to create intimacy. Things like kissing, cuddling, even just stroking or holding hands are really important. They are anyway, but even more so in times like this. And also physical touch can actually have a huge effect on stress reduction, so it helps in multiple different ways. Try and find other ways to boost her serotonin levels, because that will help with stress and also just make her feel good. That can be done with things as simple as getting out in the sun, although that's not so easy now that we're in November if you're in the UK. But just find out what does it for her in that respect. For some people that's exercise, or even just getting out for a walk. Anything that can help in that respect, because in turn that can help your libido. If she's already feeling low, she will absolutely be completely aware and concerned about the fact a loss of sex can put a strain on a relationship. So you're absolutely right to not put pressure on her, as this could completely exacerbate her anxiety. I've researched this a little further as I wanted to see if there were any practical solutions, and I've since found out that there are some suggestions to help minimize these sexual side effects whilst people are on their medication. The first one I read is to look at the time of day you most frequently have sex and tailor the time that she takes her medication to that. So, for example, if you most likely have sex at night, if she takes the medication last thing before she goes to sleep, the levels in her bloodstream will be at their lowest for the same time the following evening. People can even discuss with their doctor to split doses so that they're having a smaller dose but twice a day. Another common thing I've read about in multiple publications is for people to take periodic 2-day breaks, which can lower the sexual side effects without the return of depressive feelings. But these are all things I would actively encourage a conversation with a doctor about, as I am by no means a GP and I'd never ever want to give incorrect advice, as this is an incredibly sensitive subject. This is purely research on my own behalf. Cognitive behavioural therapy can also be incredibly helpful with issues like this, but is best done sooner than later. And also, as with a lot of medications, it can take about 3 months for anyone's hormones to settle. So she may find her libido starts to return naturally as that happens. But honestly, one of the most important things you can do is continue talking to her about it, communicating, reassuring her and letting her know that you're facing it together and supporting her. I honestly wish you all the best, and please send your girlfriend my love and let her know my door is open if she wants to talk about anything sex related. Next up, how do you handle fancying other people when you're in a long-term committed relationship and very happy with your partner? Whilst it's perfectly natural to fancy other people, we are ingrained to think we are the worst people in the world if we think someone else is cute or sexy or funny or engaging, because how dare we feel an attraction to someone other than our one true love? You're just human. It's okay, and it should be taught from the get-go that it's okay. You can love your partner to the ends of the actual earth and you will still have attractions to other people as you go through life. It doesn't mean that all of a sudden you aren't happy or that you're unsatisfied with your partner. I honestly believe that anyone who says they've never been attracted to someone else whilst in a long-term relationship is probably telling a little bit of a white lie, because it doesn't mean that people act on it. But that seems to be the visceral response to someone feeling this way. Crushes are normal. Just because you're in a relationship doesn't mean you stop noticing every other human ever. It doesn't mean you suddenly become allergic to the beauty in people. And sometimes crushes can't really be controlled. We do, however, have control over our actions. If you're actively trying to spend excessive time with the people you find yourself having a crush on, then that's looking at the start of a bit of a slippery slope. Most crushes will just pass, so it's totally fine to acknowledge them, but you can behave in ways that won't exacerbate them or turn them into anything potentially problematic for your relationship. So just make sure to maintain those boundaries. I know that feeling attraction to other people can feel confusing and also inspire a lot of guilt, but it's so common that I can't even tell you. It's not a betrayal. Your partner will have most likely had their own moments of it over the years. If you truly think that it may come from anything missing in your relationship, then this will need to be addressed with your partner and you will need to communicate it with them. I don't know the exact setup of your relationship, so only you know whether or not this is something you could talk to your partner about as a more general conversation. As we know, I'm a fan of obsessive communication, so I think I'd be okay with being told this, but I also know for a lot of people it would hurt their feelings and potentially make them worry about the future of their relationship. So if it's something that you have under control, then you may feel it's a safer option to just not have that conversation. If it helps, a sex and marital therapy study in 2019 showed that around 70% of people have experienced some kind of attraction to someone other than their partner in a long-term monogamous relationship. At the end of the day, most of the time we can't control our feelings and thoughts, but we can control our actions. So if you're in a committed relationship, as long as you're waking up every day and continuing to choose your partner and not acting on these fleeting attractions, it's totally okay. And also, the more normalized you make that in your head and the less taboo it's considered to find other people attractive, the less appealing the whole thing will be anyway. So really just accept the normality of it. You're all good, I promise. Next up, what toys would you recommend for a hetero couple who have never tried any? Oh my gosh, for a start, I'm so excited for you both and welcome to the world of toys. I'm so glad that more people are looking into this because forever we've been taught that toys are for solo play only, or making people feel like a toy is a replacement for a sexual partner, which has left a lot of men and penis owners feeling threatened by them as opposed to wanting to get on board with them, which is simply never true. We need to let go of the annoying and persistent idea that we can all meet each other's every want, need and desire with our bodies and our bodies alone. Sorry, but our bodies don't vibrate. And using a toy with a partner and using them to enhance your sex life is just chef's kiss. Obviously, yes, the toy life might not be for you, but I'm excited for you both to try because it may just change your life. I know it can feel a bit daunting because there's now 18 million different toys and accessories to choose from, but it can honestly open up entire new universes of pleasure for you and your partner. Definitely have a little conversation with your partner about what you're both comfortable trying and starting out with. For anyone else out there who is looking to introduce toys into their relationship, definitely set aside some time to talk about it. And if you're worried about how to start the conversation, you can even just begin it with, I read this article, or I heard this podcast. I mean, blame me if you want. I heard this girl Peach and she doesn't stop banging on about sex toys, so how about we give them a go? No, but seriously, let your partner know that you want to explore together and frame it as the cherry on top of an already glorious sexual pie, as opposed to something that will fix anything that may be missing in your sex life. But okay, let's get into your options to start off with. I would always recommend a clitoral vibration toy, like a bullet vibrator or even a clitoral suction toy. Now, the clitoral suction toy is truly starting to dominate the sex toy space because this is an amazing addition for penetrative sex. And if you're someone who gets off on oral, as I mentioned on my episode with Kaylee last week, it literally feels like you're receiving oral during penetration. And that, my friends, is a godsend. So that would be my number one to try. For a couple's penetration toy, I would recommend a vibrating cock ring. That's a little powerhouse toy that will have the male or penis owner lasting longer and their female or vulva owner partner riding that wave of penetration and clitoral vibration. Blended orgasm time, you know what I'm saying. If we're looking more into the S&M side of things, I know it sounds basic, but a good pair of handcuffs or restraints and blindfold are always a winner. Alongside a tickler, maybe a little whip. I mean, I really recommend a tickler or a teaser, as they're sometimes called, I think, as they can really drive you mad during a long foreplay session. I actually believe a lot of sex toy companies will do beginner's bondage kits, which will include all of these things. So have a look around and see which ones tickle your fancy. Literally. Also, please invest in some good lube because it will just enhance your experience and make sure it's water-based lube as it's safe for use with toys. Also, anal sex isn't really my jam, but if it is for you, there are some super cute little butt plugs and anal vibrators for beginners that will take your anal play to that next level. As always, I recommend Bellesa as a great company because I personally use them, and so only advertise companies that I use and approve of. And the toys I've used from them have been fantastic. They have some amazing beginners toys and sets, but I would specifically recommend the Pebble as a clitoral toy to use during penetrative sex and the Halo cock ring. Please do let me know how you get on, and I'm honestly so excited for you. And I hope that your adventure into the sex toy world is a purely pleasure-filled one. Next question. Is scheduling sex okay if you're both super busy and have sort of let the sex life become less of a priority, being together 6 years? Okay, so I know we have this idea that putting sex or intimacy into the calendar sounds like the least sexy or romantic thing going, but it's nonsense. Scheduling sex can honestly be a relationship saver for those with busy lifestyles, children, or those whose hours don't necessarily match up, which is something I see a lot with people in the theatre industry being in relationships with people who work a more standard 9-to-5 schedule. We all have obligations eating up our time, and honestly, we may not make the same time for sex that we did towards the beginning of a relationship. For a start, scheduling sex is a lot more common than you think. So, as per usual, please know that you are not alone in this and that you're in very good company. It's also infinitely better than just not having sex or giving up on sex or ignoring the fact that making spontaneous time for sex might just not really be an option anymore. Finding moments for intimacy and connection is important, and therefore this is a great way to do it. Sometimes when you've been together a long time, the mood doesn't just hit in the same way that it once did. But making sure you've got that time set aside to reconnect with each other can be super fun and even allows you build up time when you're more aware of your sexual calendar. Sex in a long-term relationship deserves dedication and time, and we all need to let go of the myth that it should just happen. Because as time goes by, for a lot of people, it just doesn't work that way. And it's absolutely fine. So let's talk about scheduling sex. Obviously, the very first part is going to be to find a day and time that works for you both, whether it's a specified time or times each week, or whether each week you look at different times. Yes, there are logistics to take into consideration, especially if you're on schedules that make you feel like passing ships, but also think about the times when you know you maybe feel at your most turned on or horny. Some people prefer late night sex. Some people are fans of morning sex. So trying to find times that work for you both in your routine and also in your sexual energy. Yes, that may mean that every now and again one partner is compromising a little more on their favourite time of day, but you can always look to make that a reciprocal thing. And you may even find that you start enjoying sex more at a different time than you thought. Also, make it important. Write it in a calendar, make it cute, make it fun. Give it the same importance as you would everything else that you put into your calendar. It doesn't even have to be that you're scheduling to have intercourse or penetrative sex, because really when we're looking at scheduling sex, we're talking about time for intimacy and connection. So look at the things that make you feel the most connected. Sometimes that's just a steamy makeout session. Sometimes it's time set aside for some foreplay and exploration. Maybe one time it's to talk about and play around with some fantasies you maybe both have. Obviously, all of these things may lead to penetrative sex, but it makes sex feel a little less on command and instead just generates an environment for intercourse to happen if it's right for you both in that moment. A really important part of this is sticking to the schedule. Yes, life happens, But it can create a huge issue if partners, especially if it's more one partner than the other, starts not following through on those sex dates. I can also understand that when people first look at making a sex calendar, it can feel like there's a little pressure. So it might take a few different versions of scheduled sex before you as a couple work out exactly what works for you. And also, any feelings of pressure can definitely be helped by using the anticipation to create excitement and build up. You can put thought into it. You can make that anticipation super spicy. Maybe that's wearing something cute or new for the occasion, trying a new position, even getting some sexting going leading up to it and letting your partner know that you're excited for your sexual time together. It may take a little time and exploration to find your way into scheduled sex, but just don't let the idea that it's boring put you off. It isn't. Scheduling a holiday or a night out doesn't make them any less fun, and the same can go for your sex life. It's a healthy way to make things work, and I'm here for it and here for you. I hope it all goes well. Last question. Thoughts on bringing someone in every so often? Naturally, my thoughts on this are, if you and your partner are happy to do this and it's consensual and it works for you, then go for it. But inviting someone else into your bed can be thrilling and also terrifying, especially if you're in an established relationship. And if you're serious about inviting someone else in, take a moment to figure out why. If it's because there's something missing from your sex life that could be solved by communicating what you want with your partner, rather than looking for outside assistance, I would actively recommend the communication. Because a threesome can absolutely be something fun and amazing to explore with your partner, but it shouldn't really be used as a solution, more as an addition to an already open communicative sex life. If this is something you're looking to bring up with your partner and you haven't already, it's natural for people to think that if their partner wants to bring someone else in, that it might mean that they're not good enough, or that there's someone you're attracted to and you're trying to find a way to have sex with them without being unfaithful. We've been brought up in a monogamous societal structure, so these are the kind of thoughts and questions you should be prepared for if this is a conversation that hasn't happened yet. Make sure to let your partner know that the aim is joint pleasure. It's not something just for yourself. And also make sure they're reassured that you love having sex with them independently so that they feel confident about another person joining. I would definitely recommend that if you're looking for a third person, that you look outside of your circle, because that could leave space for concerns of an attraction that may already been in existence, and also removes the risk of any conflict. So try and find someone who you can both meet from a mutual and neutral standpoint. As always, make sure before you go into this that you set boundaries, align with your partner, and discuss what can and cannot be done during the sexual encounters. That is imperative, as the third person will leave the bedroom, but you will continue on in your relationship. So your partner's feelings are important, and you don't want to, or shouldn't want to, hurt those feelings. It will also be up to you to decide whether you plan to maintain an ongoing situation with the third person or look to have different participants every time you partake in this. But make sure to respect whatever that decision is. And make sure to put some time into aftercare with a threesome in a relationship. Check in with your partner, see how they're doing, discuss what worked, what didn't work, so that if you do decide to make it a regular thing, it can improve each time and just become a fun thing for you both to explore together. But honestly, if it works for you both, that is all that matters. Keep communicating, keep it consensual, and make sure it's always the two of you collaborating. Well, That's it for today, but obviously the conversation about sex in long-term relationships will be coming up again and again and again and again, because it's something the vast majority of us face at some point in our lives, if not for the vast majority of our lives. And sex is so important, and finding ways to make that happen forever is hard. But we've got this. We're going to keep trying, and as long as we keep being honest and open and making sure we all know that we're in this together, it's going to get easier and it's going to get better. I promise. Thank you so much for your questions, and as always, my door is always open for any follow-ups. Until next week, thanks for coming. Thank you for tuning in to Sex on the Peach today, and I hope that you enjoyed this week's episode. You can find and follow me on Instagram, YouTube and TikTok at Sex on the Peach Cast, and you can also get in touch with me at sexonthepeachcast@gmail.com. Please do continue to like, share, subscribe, rate and review wherever you listen to your podcasts, and I'll see you next week. Love, Peach.